The value of a talent. Now, it's very difficult to translate the value of money from one era in society and culture into that of another era in society and culture. And in this case, it's especially difficult because we're dealing with a unit of weight, actually, not so much of money. A unit of weight of precious metals. The talent was the largest biblical measurement of weight. It's roughly equivalent to 3,000 shekels of silver. And 3,000 shekels of silver weigh 75 pounds. 75 pounds. Give or take a few here or there. Now, assuming that a talent in this parable is a silver talent, and it probably was, we could identify or calculate the value of that 75 pounds per talent. The current exchange rate, or the exchange rate on Friday for silver, was for 75 pounds of it was $17,860.94. Wow! That's a lot of money. I could probably handle the 94 cents of it, but now that means that the first servant, who was entrusted with 5 talents, was given $89,304.70 to invest. Wow. The second servant, given 2 talents, was given $35,721.88 to invest. Not too shabby, not too shabby. Even that first servant, the one who got the one who only 1 talent, he only got $17,860.94, but that's $17,860.94. Not a couple of dollars, not a couple of change, not 25 cents or a couple of dollars, a couple of $100. It's $17,000. That's a lot of money. And it's even more than that, because while that's the exchange rate for silver on the market today, the actual buying power of that much money, of 75 pounds of silver in Jesus' era, in the eastern half of the Roman Empire, given the nature of the depression that they were suffering at the time under the occupation of the Roman forces, the buying power of that silver was far higher. Estimates range anywhere from an equivalent buying power of $500,000 to $600,000 for that 75 pounds of silver. So it's far more than the exchange rate on the market today in value. So we're talking about an awful lot of money here. Not just a little bit. And that puts into perspective, just a little bit, that servant who only got 1 talent. I mean, we think, oh, well, he should have had greater faith. He most certainly should have. He could have put some of that at risk, right? But no. The first servant got 5 talents. He took them and invested them, and he doubled his master's money. He went from $89,304 to $178,608. I rounded it. The second servant, who got 2 talents, he doubled the money too. It went from $35,721 to $71,443. That's a pretty good return rate on the market, don't you think? I wish my retirement fund would do that. But that servant who only got 1 talent, his measly little old $17,860. Pity me, poor, poor. My master's mean. He's going to punish me if I don't return to him a great investment like these other 2. I think I'm just going to dig a hole and bury it. Tempting, but it's a mistake. The servant who got 5 talents, he brings all that money in and gives it to the master. And the master's impressed, and he says, "You have done a good job, good and faithful servant. Enter into your master's joy." You get to be a master too. Cool. Second servant with the 2 talents, he brings the double the money. Good job, good and faithful servant. Enter into your master's joy. He gets to be a master too. Third servant comes in with his 1 talent. I was afraid. That's what he says. Verse 25. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. No, you don't. For in the time that it was buried in the ground, it lost value. Inflation was real then as it is now. Lost value sitting in the ground. Not only is it dirty, it's worth less. Not worthless, but worth less. No wonder the master's angry. Here he had judged these 3 servants to have the ability to take this money and invest it wisely and make more. Much more than it could have gotten just sitting in a bank. So he gives 1 servant 5 talents, knowing this guy is really good. And guess what? He makes double the money. He gives the second one, he knows he does a good job, gives him 2 talents. That's a lot of money he gives him. And he does really well and doubles the money again. He had judged them by their ability to do it. But he gave this 1 servant 1 talent, obviously thinking he could do something with it. But he did nothing with it because he was afraid. English gets the word talent from this very story. It gets the word talent from this very story and an understanding of its interpretation as indicating that this is not about money, friends. This is not Jesus teaching us that we need to go out and invest our money on the stock market, or invest our money in real estate, or invest our money in oil, well, maybe, or invest our money in stocks and bonds or gold and silver. No. This is Jesus teaching us something about what we have been given. You see, none of these servants earned this money. It wasn't their money. They hadn't earned it. The master had entrusted them with this money. Yes, each according to his ability, but it was an entrustment of that money. 5, 2, and 1. It wasn't theirs. It was a gift. 2 of them improved upon it, grew it. 1 of them did not. He buried it. And what Jesus is saying is that we do the same thing. When we look at the gifts and graces that we have received, the talents that we have received, and when we, out of fear, bury it, we're doing what the servant did who only got 1 talent. I was afraid. Verse 25, I was afraid. I was afraid. What talents are you burying? Out of fear. What talents, what gifts, what graces, what abilities are you burying out of fear? Fear of failure? Fear of yourself? What talents, what gifts, what graces are you burying out of fear? When you bury it, you're just like this servant who was given 1 talent. This talent was worth an awful lot of money. This talent was very, very precious. It wasn't a tiny little amount. It could have been spread wide, but it wasn't. Likewise, we are given talents, we are given gifts and graces, we are given abilities, and when we do nothing with them, they don't grow. In fact, they diminish in value. They get dirty and they diminish with value. But when we put them into action, when we employ them, when we invest them in our lives and in others' lives, when we take the talents we have received and use them, they grow, they multiply. The servant who got 5, he invested it, it grew. The servant who got 2, he invested it, it grew. The servant who got 1, he did nothing with it, It didn't grow, and he got punished for it. Likewise, when we take the gifts that we have received and use them, they grow. When we don't use the gifts we have received, they diminish. And we are diminished too. The end of the story always bothers me. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Ugh. I don't like that story. I don't like the end of that. Guess what? Neither does God. That's not the objective. We're called to be the servant who invests the talents, employs the talents, uses the talents. And you've all got them. Some of you got them in your voices. Wow, it's beautiful hearing them today. Some of you have them in your ability to serve, to reach out with food and water to the hungry and the thirsty, to teach those who are questioning, to help those in need. So many have so many talents, but so sadly, so many bury them deep. What talents have you buried today? What talents have you buried because you are afraid? What gifts have you received from the creator of this universe, from the creator of this amazing universe? What gifts have you received that you're out of fear burying in the ground? It's never too late to dig it up and to put it to use. It's never too late because the master hasn't come back yet. It's never too late to take it and to put it to use, to employ it. You're never too old to start. Over in first service this morning, I turned to Mary Means and I said, God gave you a talent, and when you were 8 years old, 82 years ago, you started to exercise that talent and practice and work hard and grow into a pianist. And 82 years later, at the age of 90, she is exercising that talent, gracing all of us with her love and with the gift that God gave her. She's like the servant, having been given the 5 talents, investing it and growing it. Will we follow that kind of an example? Or will we take the gift we have received, and because we're afraid, will we bury it? My brothers and sisters, that's the question that God poses to us today. That's the question that Jesus has for us today in this parable. Will we take the talents and employ them, or will we bury them? My prayer for you is that you'll use them, employ them, and grow them to the glory of God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
In your presence, Lord, let me learn at your feet. I will taste the riches of your word by your grace upon grace. You set me free.
You have been listening to a sermon by Dr. Gregory Neal, Senior Pastor of the First United Methodist Church in Commerce, Texas, and Rector of Grace Incarnate Ministries. Copyright 2014 by Dr. Gregory S. Neal. All rights reserved. For more information and for other sermons by Dr. Neal, visit us on the web at www.revneal.org. That's www.revneal.org. You are also invited to visit us in person at First United Methodist Church, 1709 Highway 24, Commerce, Texas, 75428. This program was produced by Dr. Greg Neal.